Alright, today we're going to factor quadratic trinomials, and the method that we will be using this semester is guess and check. I would recommend you use a pencil because you're going to be guessing and you're going to check, and then you might have to erase and guess again and check again. So it is a longer process, but as you do it, you will become better at it, I promise. So if we were looking at this first problem right here, we have x squared minus 3x minus 10. Ultimately, what we're doing is factoring. Factoring is the opposite of distributing. So when you do this, your first step is to always check for what two things multiply to x squared. You're going to put those two things in two spots I just highlighted. So there's only two things that multiply to x squared. X times x. So that's what's going to go in the first spot. You shouldn't have to change those two terms ever because they're the only two things that multiply to x squared. The next step that you're going to do is you need to check for two things that multiply to negative 10. Those two numbers that you end up getting will go in these two blue slots. So this is kind of where the guessing and checking comes into play because there's more than one thing that multiplies to negative 10. You just made a list off to the side. You have positive 5 and negative 2. You have negative 5 and positive 2. You have negative 10 and positive 1, and 10 and negative 1. So you'll start to get better at this as you go, but right now you're starting off, you might just have to keep plugging in and checking. So at first I wanted to check for plus 5 and minus 2. I could, but then I have to check. By checking, what you have to do is you have to double distribute. So x times x gives you x squared. X times negative 2 gives you negative 2x. 5 times x gives you 5x. And 5 times negative 2 gives you negative 10. You should definitely know for sure that these two numbers match up because you were already checking for that. Ultimately, what you're really checking for in this check step is, does this add up to negative 3x? So if I combine my terms, I get plus 3x minus 10. I want it to be minus 3x, so that means that this is not a match and I have to try again. So my next one is to do x minus 5, x plus 2, and I'm going to double distribute and check that now. X times x is x squared, x times 2 is 2x, negative 5 times x is negative 5x, minus 10. When I add these two together, I get minus negative 3x, which is what I want, so that's right. So this right here is the correct factored version of x squared minus 3x minus 10. I'm going to skip around so this video isn't super long, and I'm going to do this bottom example, 6x squared plus 3x minus 30. So for this one, I forgot to mention for the first problem, your first step is always to check if there's a GCF. So kind of like what we did yesterday in class. Typically when there's larger numbers, there might be a GCF, so it's always good to check and make sure. So I have 6x squared, 3x, and negative 30. There happens to be a GCF. 3 goes into all of these terms. I'm going to factor out a 3 and write what I'm left over with. 2x squared, x, and negative 10. Once I get to this step, ultimately what I am doing is now I'm going to factor the remaining polynomial, what I just highlighted in green. The 3 is just going to go outside and kind of come along for a ride. It'll be a part of your final answer. So I'm going to follow the same process like I did before. I need to figure out two numbers that multiply to 2x squared, and I'm going to put them in my first slot. Well, there's only, once again, two things that multiply to 2x squared. That would be 2x and x. So you shouldn't have to change those two numbers because those are the only things that work. If there's more than two things that work, then you might have to guess and check with those as well. Funny enough, we have negative 10 again that we need to multiply to. So if you want, we could reference our list that we used earlier and start plugging these numbers in. So I can try my plus 5 and my minus 2, this one that I X'd out originally, and see if that works. I'm going to check it. Double distribute. I'm not going to include the GCF when I double distribute. So I have 2x squared minus 4x plus 5x minus 2. Combine my terms, so I have 2x squared plus x minus 2. And I'm checking to see, does this match with my stuff that was highlighted in green? I made a mistake, this should be 10, sorry. This is a 10. And it does match, so that's right. So my final answer for this one is this, but I'm going to write it kind of neater. So 3 goes on the outside because that's your GCF. It's 2x plus 5, and we have x minus 2. So as you can see, it is very important when you're doing these problems that you check them. If you don't check, then it's probably not right. Real quick, if we wanted to do x squared plus 13x plus 22, start it out the same way. Is there a GCF? There's not. So you're just going to jump right away to your first step. Your first step says what two things multiply to x squared. Put them in the first slot. X times x. Then you need what two things are going to multiply to give you 22. So there's not too many things that multiply to 22. We have 2 and 11, and we have 1 and 22. So you're just going to try guessing these numbers. So I'll just try with 2 and 11. I'll check. X times x is x squared. X times 11 is 11x. 2 times x is 2x. And lastly, 2 times 11 is 22. So when you combine my terms, you get x squared plus 13x plus 22, which is ultimately what we want to check. So this is our correct answer. Go ahead and try the other problems on the sheet. Make sure you're checking them. That's the most important part. Use your classmates for help with your stuff.
Magic.